What's good, you guys? Welcome to episode 5 of the Instagram sneaker series. In this series is where I review specifically brands I found on Instagram that have 100% original design and that have a shoe I think you would want to see and I would want to buy. And these are no different. As soon as I came across this brand and saw this specific model, I was copying immediately, no questions asked. These are dope, and the brand itself has a really interesting backstory of how they go at the footwear game in general. But let's just get into the shoes first, because today we're talking about the Flamingos Life Wairoa. But on the note of independent brands on Instagram, I want to make one quick shout out, and that's to Polyworld. That's the shirt I'm rocking right now. They actually have a cool 3-tier series where it's all these different parodies of the bathing ape, but they're mixing in elements from Pokemon and things like that. The quality on the shirts is super nice. They do come with a boxy fit, but I went true to size, shrunk mine in the dryer, and it was all good. So check those guys out on Instagram because their stuff is actually super dope. Now getting back into the shoes, starting with the box, it comes in this completely recyclable cardboard box. There's no ink used on this. That's actually denoted right here. It flips open from the side, and then you have the size tag right there. This is a Euro 46, so a US 12. And you might be thinking, wow, that's a pretty underwhelming box, but it plays into their entire ethos of using sustainable materials that I'll get into later. Starting off with the toe box, you get this chrome toe cap with these designs on both the lateral and medial. Above that, you have another metallic panel in copper to accent that, and then the mesh on here is like a vintage beige. The mesh on here is super light and breathable, and you also have a nice lining on the inside as well for foot feel. On the lateral side, you get the Wairoa branding right there and another metallic panel with some graphics to it, and above that you have these leather panels in gray, green, and then a matted black one above that. And all the leather panels on here are made from vegan leather. That's part of the brand's ethos, is that they do not use any animal products, and they actually have a lot of different interesting ways that they use plant-based items to make up elements of the shoe. At the center, you get this sort of upside down F with that same 2-layered gray and green leather there. Then you have another bronze panel that sweeps up to the heel, and you get a meeting of those vegan leathers and that other like matted black overlay. On the back of the heel, you see the metallic panels again, the leather panels again, and that matted out area towards the bottom. And then you have the flamingo branding and then a hit of that beige mesh right at the top. On the lacing system, you get another triple hit of the different types of materials right here by these second lace loops. The tongue comes in that same vintage beige mesh, and then you get a chrome hit in the center of the lace system here, and then the Flamingos Life tag at the top of the tongue where it says plant-based sneakers. And the laces they use on here are dope. This is like a flat oval lace, but it's interwoven with green and white, and these are made using only 100% organic cotton. The back of the tongue and sock liner come in a forest green, and these are actually made from 60% bamboo and 40% recycled polyester. Then the insole comes in that green as well, and you get the Flamingos Life branding at the heel, and you can see the exposed edges of the foam of the insole where the top of the textile is overlaid on it, and the insoles that come standard with these are actually pretty decent. The midsole comes with some pretty cool tooling and lines to it, and the color is like that off beige again that really give this shoe overall like a vintage feel. Then you have the split midfoot shank in this chrome color. On the outsole, that traction pattern comes in black, and you can see that split midfoot shank in chrome. Then you have that guidance line that goes through the center in that beige. Now, as far as size and fit, these are true to size for sure. I got them in a size 12. I'm a wide and flat footer. I don't believe they make half sizes though, and in the toe box they are about as snug as you would want to be, so I wouldn't size down if you fall into one of those half sizes. Now, these shoes are extremely light, and it's very noticeable on foot. The whole upper is pretty flexible itself, and when you're kind of taking your down steps in these, the upper can push out a little bit. But on foot, I just really like the aesthetic of this. I think overall, with all these different panels and the mixtures of materials, they really did a good job. This specific colorway I love, obviously being a big fan of green and just liking metallic mesh runners. The ankle collar padding is super minimal, but honestly they're not uncomfortable on foot. The only thing I would maybe say is that on the inner side of the arch there isn't a lot of support there, so you're kind of falling off if you're like me and you have flat feet. But overall, I just think these come together really nicely, and I really like the laces that they added to it. That's a nice addition from just your standard oval lace. Now, this brand was started in 2015 and is from Spain, and their main thing is using those sustainable products and non-animal products. The shoes actually come with this little booklet that gives you a breakdown of all the different recyclable and waste materials that they use to create these shoes. This is actually the specs for this pair right here, so you can really see the percentages they use there for all these different biodegradable or waste products. Some of the images that you get in this pamphlet can also be found on their website, such as this, where they explain how they use corn waste and things like bamboo to create elements to the shoes themselves. I'm going to leave that up there for a second so you guys can pause and maybe read that if you're interested. And they also also use 100% organic cotton and only natural rubber in their shoes. This is another slide depicting that. Like the fact that these say that the upper on my pair of shoes is actually made out of 26% apple waste. I'm not exactly even sure 100% what that means or how that process works, but the fact that you can get this end product from those processes is pretty crazy. And with this entire brand's mission centered around less of a carbon footprint and more ecologically friendly ways of processing, producing, and sourcing materials, they also provide complete transparency for their business. They have here this chart that depicts all the ways they were able to reduce the carbon footprint throughout the entire process of creating their shoes. For all these reasons, this brand specifically holds itself to a much higher standard, and any of the kind of audits or checks that need to be done on their factories are actually done on a more frequent schedule than is even legally required. And they also directly participate in community programs like this reforestation program, the Cleaning Oceans program, and this water supply program. And of course they do have other models, some with more of like a Nike Dunk vibe to them, some with like a football shoe aesthetic, but in my opinion, honestly, the Wairoas, you cannot beat that model. I think this is the most impressive one that they have, and it's the most unique. There's a lot of different colorways that you could see here, so if you're interested in any of those different vibes and maybe not specifically the one that I have, you definitely have options. Now, with these being a brand from outside of the country, we got to talk about shipping and tariffs because both of those things do come into play with this brand. I ordered these on a pre-order that was meant to launch September 22nd, and once the 22nd came, they launched immediately, and I had them within a week of that date. And as far as tariffs, I did have to pay those similarly to the Art Copenhagen's I bought, but this time the tariffs came in at about $55. The retail price on this was like $203.70, so overall it's a little bit over $250 for these, but I'm happy to have them, especially because the aesthetic of this was one of the ones I was looking forward to the most. And overall, I don't really have any complaints with this shoe. Doing this series so far, the price point on here pretty much falls in line with most of these other independent brands, and I am grateful to have something different that you're just not going to find in the US market. I think the color combination and the materials they used on this, not to mention the laces, just really brings this home for me and is something I'm happy to have in the collection. But that's going to wrap it up on my review for the Flamingos Life Wairoa. If you guys wouldn't mind liking, commenting, or subscribing, that's always appreciated. But I'm going to get out of here, so thanks for watching, and remember, life's short, so buy the shoes.